Okay, so I learned a lot of really cool things in psychology this week. And when I learn new cool things and I'm super excited about it, I just want to share it with everybody, except I'm not really good at talking. So we're going to ignore the fact that I look like this. We're going to ignore the fact that I talk fast and will probably stutter. And we're going to also ignore the fact that I am not going to know what I'm saying most of the time. And I'm going to have to look back at it, whatever. Because I'm excited and I just want to let you guys know all these things. So don't judge me, just learn. Okay, so first of all, the first thing that I learned is that, so you guys know when you're super angry and you just want to punch something and you're like, oh yeah, I gotta let my anger out, I gotta go to the gym, I gotta punch this punching bag and get all my anger out. That actually makes you angrier. And Freud, if you guys ever took a psychology class, you know who Freud is. He made that up because he thought that we acted the same as steam engines. Yeah, so it was actually found, people did a study on this, and if you want me to explain the study, please reach out to me because, again, I'm super excited and I love teaching people the things that I learned. But yeah, the study was done and they made two different groups of people angry. And the first group, they're like, hey, imagine this punching bag is the person that made you angry. Go at them, whatever. And the other group, they're like, just sit there and take it in, relax for 2 minutes. And it was actually shown that the people who sat there and just let it in had a lot less negative thoughts about the person that made them angry than the people who vented their anger out. It made them a lot angrier. Also, number 2, do you guys know the show Beyond Scared Straight, where they have all of these bad teenagers who are doing illegal things? They go to a prison and they get scared straight, and that's supposed to scare them out of doing the bad things because it makes them scared to go to prison, you know. Actually, that show had a 20% increase. Those kids that were on that show, they were, I don't know how to say this. This is what I'm talking about. But there was a 20% increase on the kids that went on the show doing more illegal things, and they had a higher chance of going to jail because of it, which is weird because that's not what you would think. There's also different contexts of things. So I don't know if you guys have heard this or not, but there's just a rumor, I guess, whatever, going around that don't hug your dog because they don't like it, or dogs don't like it when you hug them or whatever. And that's taken out of context. It's actually not true. This was one of the things that I learned earlier in the week, so I don't exactly remember why, but I'm pretty sure it was just the researcher who was doing the study of don't hug your dog because it makes them scared or whatever, angry. They were just using pictures of dogs that they found in a magazine being held, and they were displaying signs of uncomfort or whatever, but they were using pictures. It wasn't an actual study, and they were just making an inference. So that's actually not true. You are allowed to hug your dog. Teachers' evaluations correlate with student achievement. So if a teacher thinks that the student is going to do bad on this test, they're going to do bad on that test. And it's their grading criteria or whatever. Now, I do have to say, one of the big quotes in psychology, correlation does not equal causation. I don't think that this causes, if teachers say Haley is going to do bad on this test, that causes Haley to do bad on the test. But there is a correlation, because if teachers don't have faith in their student's not going to be good at this or whatever. If there's not high expectations, they're not going to get a high grade. And so I was thinking, because I love applying what I learned in psychology to a classroom setting if I ever wanted to be a teacher or something, because I think that would be so cool. I feel like I'd be a good teacher just because I know all the psychology stuff. And I was thinking, for if I was an English teacher or something, I would have people write their essay, whatever, type it out, and then write their name on the back of it so I don't know whose essay it is. That way we can get rid of that correlation between the student's achievement and my inferences on them. I would just be grading the essay and not Haley's essay. It would just be the essay, and then I'd be oh, it's Haley's, here you go, I already graded it, whatever. This one is actually really cool. Different fonts, fonts that caused people to have different opinions. Let me explain. So I'm going to make up the examples, but like you get the context, whatever. The example they gave us was the death sentence. And so they got a group of students, people, whoever, who didn't believe in the death sentence or something, and they put them into two groups. So this group, they all got the same article, the same, word for word, the exact same article, whatever. But this group, they gave the article in a dark, bold font, just like a normal article, whatever. This group, they gave the article to students that were like it was a gray color and it was italicized. And so it's like the people had the same beliefs and they read the same article, but the people in this group that read the dark and bold font article, they kept their beliefs about the death sentence. But the people in this group who had the gray and italicized ones, they were more likely to sway their opinions and be like, okay, I get that other side, you convinced me. And that's because, they think that it's because the italicized font made them think more, like they actually have to read it word for word and focus more on what it's saying instead of just getting through and be like, yeah, I don't believe this. So that's kind of cool. If you want somebody to believe you, make them actually read it and make it more inviting. I like this one because I want to go into the FBI. I like criminology, that type of stuff, whatever. So it was found that I'm pretty sure 100% of the people when there's like an interview and there's the guilty guy or what's it called? The suspect. Suspect is right here talking and he's being interviewed or interrogated and the guy's like interrogating him, whatever. If the camera is on the suspect, like if you're watching an interrogation right now and I'm the suspect and you're watching me like this, I'm pretty sure 100% of the time, the people watching the recordings find the suspect guilty. And I don't know why. I think it's because they try to read into him and they're like, oh yeah, he's guilty. But then if the camera is at the detective, so point of view, we turn this around, I'm the detective now and the camera's on me. If you're looking at me and you're not looking at the suspect, but you can hear what he's saying, I think 100% of the time, or at least the majority of the time, the suspect was found not guilty. And so that's why now in interrogations, the camera is right here and you can see the suspect right here and the interrogator right here. So you can see both of them at the same time, and that gets rid of the bias between finding it guilty and finding it not guilty. This one was really cool. This is what got me super into psychology when I learned this in my Psych 101 class, but now we're getting more in depth to it when we're on the higher up level classes, whatever. So feeling hot increases your belief in global warming. So if you're going to a classroom or whatever where you learn about global warming, if that classroom is hot, you're more likely to believe in global warming. And that's the same with if I was meeting a new person for the same time, if I was meeting Mackenzie for the first time ever, I don't know who she is, and we went to a cold place and I was sitting on a cold hard chair and we were eating our cold ice cream. When I leave that place, I'm gonna think, Kenzie was kind of a cold, hard person. Whereas if you go on a date with somebody and you're warm and there's feelings of warmth all around, the environment is warm, then I'm going to have warm feelings towards that person. I think that's kind of cool. So use that to your advantage on dates. Don't go ice skating on your first date or else they're gonna think you're cold. Rosy retrospection. We recall pleasant events more favorably than was actually experienced. And this is definitely true for vacations, because when I think back, I'm I went on vacation to Utah. I always go to Utah, whatever. I can come home and I can be like, wow, that was a really fun trip. We did this, we did that, we did whatever. But then in reality, when I was on the trip, I was like, this sucks. I have altitude sickness. I just started my period. this, that, and the other. It wasn't all that fun. But when I get home and I'm looking back at it, I'm like, man, that was a great trip. I climbed the mountain and I saw my friends and all this stuff. So when we look back at our past experiences, usually we have a more pleasant feeling towards it. I'm already at 10 minutes. Good thing I didn't do all this on Snap. Okay, last is data fabrication and falsification. So there's a researcher that did a whole bunch of research on food. He had tons of articles published and everything. And he did research, I don't know exactly what it was, but there were some that like I had even heard before. But the one that I do remember he did was he put like stickers on apples to see if kindergartners would eat more apples if they had a fun sticker on it or whatever. And so any of you who have taken statistics knows that a p-value below 0.05 is statistically significant. And when he did this study, he got a p-value of 0.06, which is just barely there. So he fabricated his data and he did more studies on children that did take the apples because there was a sticker on it. And so he just added those numbers to make the p-value 0.05, making it statistically significant, when in reality that's not how it actually was. He just manipulated the data so it would say that. And then so all of his articles got taken off the shelf, whatever. And then data falsification is where you basically just make things up. You put in random people with random numbers, and that's what happened. I don't want to get political. That's what happened with the autism with vaccines, the whole vaccines causes autism, whatever. That researcher was found to have been doing data falsification, where he literally just made up the numbers, made up the people, made up everything about it. And that's why it was pulled and everything. But it's also interesting because with that, this past week, we also learned about belief perseverance. And that's when people have a strong belief in something, even when it's proven false, they still believe that it's true. And that's what happens. That's what's happening right now with the vaccines causing autism. People heard that and they're holding on to that belief that vaccines cause autism, when it was proven false. And that researcher that published that study was proven to have manipulated made up his data. And so yeah, that is my psychology recap for this week. Hope you guys enjoyed.